In the last video, I talked a little bit about some of the theory involved. I'm going to go into that in a little greater depth. So this is a theory class. Sorry. Hang in there. You can do it. So I mentioned last time that moving into the key of G, there are certain chords that you're going to need. So if you think in terms of the C chord, when we played songs in the key of C, we used C, 1, 2, 3, F is the fourth, C, D, E, F is 4, G is 5, A is 6, but A is always minor. So 6 is always minor. So 1, 4, 5, and 6 minor. Okay. There are others, and it gets into grade, it gets a little more involved. We're not going to go there. So when you move into the key of G, what are the chords you're going to need? Well, first of all, when you add a 7 to a chord like G7, C7, F7, you are making the chord a little less stable. And when the chord is unstable, it doesn't sound finished. So if you're in the key of C, a C7 doesn't fit, but you can play a G7. When you're in the key of G, now you have to use a full G. You can't use a G7. So, however, if you start on G, you've got G, A, B, C is going to be the 4 chord. D is going to be the 5 chord. D is in dog patch. So D can actually have a 7. And I use the Hawaiian D7, which is only 2 fingers. These 2 fingers here on the 2nd and the 4th string. And E minor. Now, E minor is a tricky chord, and it's a staircase. And oftentimes you have to take everything off the chord before and put that one on. Well, early on, I discovered the chord E minor 7. So when you put your fingers on a G chord and you take your ring finger off, the 2 fingers you're left with, that's E minor 7. So when you play G, E minor, C, now you can play Stand By Me in the key of G because you've got the 1 chord, which is G, the C chord, which is 4, 5 is D7, but then the 6th chord is E minor 7. And E minor 7 is much more approachable, especially when you're playing in the key of G, and that's when you use it most frequently. So the theory part of this is thinking in terms of numbers. 1, so a chord built on the 1st degree of the scale is going to be G. G, A, B, C is build a C chord on the 4th degree, D on the 5th degree, and E minor on the 6th degree, because the 6th degree, a chord built on the 6th note of a scale, is always minor. So, for our purposes, when you want to switch students and you want to work on them in the key of G, they need a G chord, a C chord, D7, and E minor 7. So the trick for you is to help them understand that these 2, once you have them shape the G chord, and like I mentioned in the last video, they're going to be more comfortable not using their pinky, I would expect. Some may be able to, but don't go down the road that's going to create frustration for them, So if they're playing G, not using their pinky, then when they take the ring finger off, what they're left with is an E minor 7 chord. And then they just move, they keep their fingers as if there was a little block of wood between the 2 fingers and they're taped together. They just move up to D7, back to E minor 7, D7, E minor 7. That shape is something they have to wrap their head around whenever they're playing in the key of G. They need to think about this shape of these 2 fingers. So G, E minor 7, C, D7. And if they use ring finger for C, then these two fingers are ready to plop back on for the D7. So that way you have G, E minor 7, C, D7, forgot where I was going for a second there. So that thinking, whenever you want to move into a new key, you have to think, what is the 1 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 chord, and the 6 minor chord? And so that's a little bit of theory. And those Roman numerals, which is why we learned them back in grade 4, is so that we can do our harmonic analysis. But Roman numerals is a great way to think in terms of transposing from one key to the next key to the next key. If you know what your 1, 4, 5, 6 minor chords are, then you can move into another key with maybe only learning one new chord. So the theory part is knowing the numbers, and but it is a way to expand kids' chord knowledge or chord library gradually without overloading them with like 3 new chords. You know, we're going to play this song, but we need 3 new chords. Well, if you do that, they will shut down. So as I mentioned back, Can't Buy Me Love, you're in the key of C, but you add the E minor 7. So you're isolating the new chord amongst chords that they already know. And that way, that one new chord may stick a little bit better. And you need to reinforce it. You need to practice it. You need to reinforce it. I don't know if they would want to play Tom Jones. It's not unusual, but it's in the key of C and has an E minor 7 chord in it as well. When speaking of the 7 chord, if you happen to be in the key of C playing a song, A minor 7 has no fingers. It uses no fingers. So A minor 7 is also a chord that's really approachable for the kids. But it's good to teach A minor because then you move into F and D minor. So they've got that, you know, it opens another whole group of chords that will help them get their fingers around the fretboard a little more readily. Please note that I don't have stickers, and I don't like stickers. But I also encourage kids not to look at their fingers. If they decide, and this is a little aside now, if they decide to spend some time practicing their chords, they can look at their fingers when they're home. They're going F, C, A minor. If they're practicing their chords, they can look at their fingers. But when they're playing a song, it's not good to stop and look at their fingers. They have to trust that their practice was fruitful and that their fingers know where to go. Because as soon as they look down at their fingers, they've lost their place in the music, and now they can't play anymore. And one of my students told me that she jumps a couple lines ahead, gets the chord ready, and then she jumps back in when the rest of us get to that part. But you don't want, you want students to have that ability to get back in and to compensate for themselves. But the easier way to do it is to have them not look at their fingers. So when you do some careful chord practice at the beginning of class, let them look at their fingers so they know exactly where they're going. And you just say the chords for them. And then when they're actually playing a song or playing something that they've already played before, it's important to help them say, okay, now we're not going to look at our fingers. Now we're going to let our fingers do the walking, just like it's the Yellow Pages. But the kids wouldn't understand that. Okay. So that's the theory behind the 1, 4, 5, and 6 minor. Anytime you want to move into a new key, you go 1. What's going to be 1? You know, if you wanted the key of D, D is 1, G is 4, A7 is 5, and B minor is 6. And that's not a chord that's not a key that you want to jump into in a hurry, let me tell you. So stick with C and G. You'll get most of the, you know, they'll handle that transition quite well, I think. Okay, take care. See you next time.